Ilm al-Raml, I told you that it's not only for definition. I call it, in my tradition, in my system, I'm calling it sand sorcery,
Mm,
because utilization of it is just not reading what's going to happen. I feel that you can influence, you can bring about a lot, connect with spirits. Now, I use it personally. You know that each one of these symbols in Ilm al-Raml, or and sand, have a head, a chest, a stomach, and legs,
mhm.
because it's four levels each one. So it's broken down to this way. I find this very powerful to use with shibaris, the ancient Egyptian little things that like servitoires, effigy for the spirit you're working with, and they used to take in ancient Egypt with them as servants in the afterlife. So I actually use that in what you, I don't know what you'd call that in English, fetish magic, but I find
Um,
it very powerful.
you mean like almost like a um, yeah, servitor, right?
Almost.
Or pump, yeah,
But it's not contingent on you building a thought form. It's an
because it's already
actual.
there,
uh,
right? Mm,
It's already there. You probably have access to it through higher jinn and spirits. They can give you
mhm,
delegation to different things that have specific functionalities. So, for
mhm,
instance, maybe one of them could be helper in dreaming.
mhm.
Maybe one is good with talismans, and that's why you end up having a few of those. So I really view, and then also another thing that we talk about when you do Alm al-Raml or Sufic sand sorcery is, I think that's in the Latin version too. When you have the mothers, you have the
Mhm.
aunts, and you have the offspring, and you have the third generation. So that kind of really also give you a lot of um, penetration in the 16 symbols. I view them as eight section divided by two. Yeah, I definitely. So, for instance, in the new one that you're mentioning, you don't even need sand, which for me is funny. If you think of it, it's called the Sorcery of Sand. And now they
Right,
just want to sit on a handbook and do dots. Well, where's
right,
the sand? There is a power, there's an oath, there is a covenant between this level.
right.
And you need to have in your house, if you're doing this, maybe a big brass or copper thing with some sand in it if you don't have it outside. So it's so essential to work it. This is the symbols here. I know in
Wow.
the English or the
Yeah,
oops,
right.
I know in the English or the one you just mentioned,
Well, the
they
Golden
don't
Dawn
have it the
version.
same.
Yep,
They have it like a dot and two dots.
correct.
And
Wow.
then there is something when I did look in some of the English interpretations of this. That's of course
Wow.
the actual kashkul of the second year that we work from.
Mhm.
Um,
Wow.
that's all for Ilm al-Raml. Um, oh
You
yeah,
know
I
that.
did look, and it was missing something major that I feel it's a shame it didn't come through. And again, I don't look a lot, and when it comes to my tradition, I don't look a lot to secondary sources.
Mm,
I digest the mother tombs, the tradition that sprung out of it, the interpretation of my experience that leads me to that place. And then, if I'm lucky enough to see a few decent texts in English or other languages that I can read a little bit of, I kind of take a look at the ones, and I'm not claiming that I've read them all again. The ones I've noticed that they don't mention the conscience of the
mm,
reader. So in our tradition, you need to know what's the true conscience of the reader, because sometimes you can come to me or someone come to me, I want to know about my mom or something. But what's the
mhm.
real thing? Maybe he doesn't even know something in deeper, and that's the true conscience of the person, not the conscious, the conscience. And there is a way to uncover the true conscience, and I feel that's very valuable in the read. I'm not sure if that have traveled in the English and Latin.
Is there a specific sand you use? Is there sand from, for instance, the Arab
The most
world or?
powerful sand or earth you can use is where you were born.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Where you were
So
born? Wow.
that's very powerful. So whatever you were born, grab some of that. If not, any good sand,
Okay.
any good dry sand will do well. And you know how eventually um, you can eventually do it in a paper, but you have to have the place that you have the covenant taken on. Most powerfully, you want it's called darb al-Raml. So let's
Mm,
translate what it's called in Arabic. Raml is sand. Darb is to beat up the sand. So
mm,
there is something I'm bringing up by tabbing, and I
mm,
tab with you can tab with many things, a stick, preferably if you have a gold, something gold that's specifically done for that, and you hit with it.
mm,
You can have a big pen, big stick, you can even do it with your finger. And that beating up, and you're doing these points, you've seen it, of course. You go in a curve and you do all these random points, random points, random points, and you do certain number of lines, and then you go eventually and then start joining every two together. And
mm,
if it's, and then from that, if you got the first line, just one line, and then the second line, a dot, and you
mm,
form from what you got from earth, from the sand, by tabbing, and you're tabbing through an older covenant. And I feel when we cut these spiritual uh, initiatory pathways that goes into our ancestors, and we took oaths on them, and the spirits came through. It's almost a neurotransmitter in your psyche, let's say, for spirit. And when we don't use them, and you end up just putting ingredients together, you lose the soul of what we're trying to do, which is magic here. And I noticed that even in drawing. Some people I know draw very well. I knew this guy had an atelier. His brother was a painter, but he could just copy that guy. And there's something almost always missing in what he's doing. I can't tell what it is. That all the picture look good, but it's very mathematically. It's not. There's not that free spirit interpretation, and it's not a matter of opinion. In my book, this is essential. These are um, pathways that's been established. There's a reason why it's called sand. It's not just sitting and do it. Now you can have more elaborate methods to do that, absolutely, but you have to have in your home a place that you could covenant on with that. So per se, let me give you another example. I do sell in my Sufic Sorcery some rare talismans. One of them has to do with a Sufic bone talisman. Now,
mm,
for me to work that, and I work it with my hand, I have to have one of those bones buried somewhere, that I have a shrine with the spirit signifying what I'm doing. I'm giving thanks to what I'm doing. I'm giving it a placement. And every time I'm working a new place, there's a shrine there that have this connection. And
mm.
if I don't have that, it's like having a plant with no root. So I view that the sand importance and the geomancy or the sand sorcery is profound.